order. From staff, we got Lisa Sindell, we've got Steve Hellman, Rebecca Tapahada, James Roach, Jarrett Mann. From the board, Bill Wasserman, Brooke Booth, Don Langley, and Robert Kanah, myself, Merlin Klotz, and our manager, Ron Red, and our legal counsel, Jeff Parker.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any unscheduled items of public interest? Seeing none.
I don't think so, yes. No.
Any changes or additions to the agenda
We have none.
from the board?
No.
None from the board. Any board comments?
Yeah, I have one. So in May, students from my old alma mater in Michigan, Grand Valley State University, are coming out west to learn about water. In Michigan, you're never more than 5 miles away from a river, a stream, a lake. So water is not an issue, but they're coming out to study water problems and so on in the West. And they did this 2 years ago. And it was written up in the alumni magazine. And I went to Ron and said, you know, if they do this more often, we ought to think about inviting them. So we've done that, and they're going to come and spend half a day here May 11th, I believe, and I think there'll be 20 to 22 students and a couple professors and an assistant professor. So I think it's going to be a fun event, and will get us a little notoriety, but I think that it's really going to be for them to get an idea of what we have to deal with out west here. So I'm really looking forward to them coming.
Any other comments? Seeing none, leadership team.
Okay, and just to follow up on it, not to make everything political, but it never hurts that another state knows that we are helping out their students when it comes to federal funding type stuff. So I think it's a good thing.
Exactly.
So I have kind of a longer update. So again, we are increasing water in the reservoir, which is a good thing. We're up almost 27,300 acre feet, which is great news. I get worried when I see the long-term forecast and there's no big spring storms that we're talking about, but we'll take it while we got it. We're up to 106 feet deep. I believe the highest, again, was around 30,000, but that was right at 110 feet.
It was
So
about 5 below 30,000. It was just
Yeah.
almost there.
Yeah. So it's all good news. A couple things I wanted to bring up. I've mentioned before, Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer asked us to help draft a bill to help the CDPHE folks help them with their permitting process. And as you might recall, they put together some goals that they were going to do, and Senator Kirkmeyer wanted to make those goals as part of this law. And so we've drafted that. And again, it's now out circulating. It's changing here and there, but generally it's looking really good that this is going to move forward. So I think it'll be a good thing. The state's on board. They've asked for some things to be taken out of the law, and they'll put it in the rule-making component. And probably the big one was we had in there, well, they had indicated they wanted to get their backlog taken care of in 4 years. We put that in there. They feel that's more appropriate in the rulemaking side, so that makes sense. So again, it's moving forward. South Metro's on board, and we're just working. It's small tweaks, but it's late in the process, but it looks like it's going forward. So, and it has bipartisan support, so that's always nice. So
One little question, what's the snow melt rate this year? Is it fast or slow or?
I haven't paid that much attention. It's been slow, but the bigger problem is the snowpack when you look at the chart, it's on the lower end of the average versus middle or above average.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard, there's no flooding that I'm aware of. So that's usually
I could offer a
an
comment.
indication of snow melt.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I looked at, the northern basins were 105% of median snowpack, but they're still only predicting about 65% of normal runoff. So this is that phenomena that's been happening the last, decade or so, maybe 5 years of, it's not making it down to the rivers and stuff. Everything's still so dry up in the mountains, so doesn't look good,
No.
really. It doesn't look good.
You never know.
Yeah.
It was before I think it was right after the 2003 drought. It was looking like 2004 is going to be the same, and then we got 4 feet of snow and saved us for a year. But then we went right back, so we'll see. I did want to let you know there is some legislation out there for data centers, and what they're trying. A lot of the municipal governments are trying to encourage and subsidize data centers. And I mean, I don't pretend to know that much about it, but what I'm hearing is they bring in a lot of revenue, but there's not a lot of services required because there's not a lot of people. So you don't have police, fire, street issues, but you get a lot of money out of these. So I could see why they want it. We're trying to dig into the impacts to water and wastewater. And when I first heard about it, it's like, well, obviously they got to circulate the water, and they do. But apparently why there's such a water hog is the cooling system is where you lose it to evaporation. So, okay, so we'll look into that. And then on the wastewater side, it sounds like it picks up a lot of chlorides. So we're going to dig into it. It just dropped a couple days ago. I know Parker has expressed interest. I don't know the city of Parker. I'm not sure if that actually went through or not, but we've never been told there's one. But I keep hearing rumors there might be one. So we'll look into it and get back to you on that. So, just a reminder, I picked election day so I wouldn't forget, but the core election, there's 2 candidates, and the approach that I've been advised by our attorney was to just get feedback from you guys and just go with the majority, and we get to vote once. And so I got 2 votes in writing or in emails. So if you need me to resend it, just let me know how you want to vote, and then we'll vote on behalf of the board and get it in. So quick update on customers not in our district. So I personally called, we have 7 residents. There's businesses that are LLCs and they can't vote, and we'll get to them eventually, but I prioritize the homeowners. So I called 6 of them. One is a rental, have yet to figure out the labyrinth of maze to get out of the management company to the homeowner. I'll continue to work on that. But I called 6. I actually talked to 2, and they both did not know they were not in the district. And I had to be very quick. Everything's good with your account. District manager calls, usually it's not a good thing. Everything's cool with your account. Had good conversations. Again, they were surprised they weren't in the district. Told them about there could be a fee coming, an out-of-service fee, and so they understood that. But it might surprise you, they all decided to stay out of the district and save their property tax. So I will follow up with an email and give them a link to the county so they can actually see what taxes they pay. The other 4 I have not heard back from. I'll follow up with an email, and we'll go from there. But it was very positive conversations, and they appreciated a call versus a letter, which I thought they would. So that went well. So tomorrow, we actually have a pretty good turnout. I definitely want you all to consider it. We have a guest speaker. He is a etymologist, And, it says up there, talking on biodiversity and how we as humans can work with that. So it's going to talk about bugs and how they help us. So I think that'll be fairly interesting. He's a well-known speaker, and so I look forward to it. We actually have 41 folks from outside of staff. So we let all our cities know. We have some environmental groups. We have some HOA groups coming. And so I think it'll be good. And it's tomorrow at 9:30.
Did you say 41? 41 attendees?
41 that are outside of the district. We've invited our staff, and we'll hang back, make sure everyone gets a seat. But we can usually do 85 in here if we need to.
Is that going to be held in here?
It's going to be right here. Yeah. So I look forward to it. And then this is a picture of the new floating docks we have out on the Rudder Hess Reservoir. And the county, again, is responsible for this, or I should say the what's no longer the Rec Authority, but it's the
Rec Advisory Board.
The Rec Advisory Board. But the county was installing them. And so it's great to see out there. What's really cool, that's county staff. We had a hard time finding someone that could install it. And when we did find someone, or when they found someone, it was very, very expensive. And so the county staff just watched a few YouTube videos and did it themselves. So it's just great having that can-do attitude here. Those poles actually go into the bottom of the reservoir to hold them in. So that's plan A. I'll let you know how after the first thunderstorm what plan B will be, but they're up. And I think this will be very popular. If you've been there, the interface between ground and water is usually anywhere from 12 to 18 inches of mud. And so people won't have to deal with that. I believe, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're going to have a slip or two that you could stick a canoe or kayak in so you don't get that uncomfortable feeling of trying
Loading
to launch.
and unloading, yeah.
So very, very happy to see that. Just to give you an idea, that picture is facing east. And if you look past them, that you got the dead tree because it drowned. There's too much water. But beyond that, you see the Scrub Oak. That first parking lot is tucked in behind that lower parking lot's behind that Scrub Oak. So that's looking east to give you a sense where it's at. So all good. Okay, we are switching up the order in which we talk to be a nice smooth flow down the aisle here. So I'm going to turn this over to Steve.
Evening, everybody. Just two updates for me. The first one, the auditors have been here all week. They're doing their first week of field work. So far, they said everything was going good. Jeff and his team have supplied a lot of information to them, and they've been very happy with how they've been doing. I will say the managing partner comes in next Tuesday, so hopefully we continue to do well with the audit and everything. Second thing is more sad news. So Jason Owen, who was our purchasing manager for about 6 months, he was having some personal issues and left the district. He was reported missing about 2 weeks ago, and we received notification over the weekend that he had been found deceased in his apartment. So that hit the district pretty hard again. This is the second death in a while, and certainly hit the accounting department quite hard too. So that's the end of my update.
All right, I just have two updates for you this evening. About a month and a half ago, I updated you on the North Plant expansion and moving that schedule ahead because of the flows that we're seeing. So we're still on that path to do that. The original plan that is we would actually start the design in 2026, and the construction would be occurring in late 27 and into 28. There's a new plan with the change in flows, so we're going to phase that construction. We're actually in the process of hiring an owner's advisor So we're going to be bringing that to the board for a request for approval at our next meeting on April 24th. And then they're going to help us go through our design build proposals that we will be receiving at the end of May. And that is so that we can actually start the preliminary analysis and the design this year and into next year, working on the full design, so that we can actually get some construction done in 2026 and have some additional capacity for when we actually see our flows projected to exceed our capacity around mid-2027. So we're looking to have that additional capacity. It won't be the full build out. We're really looking to find those bottlenecks and things like that in our current process, so we can get an extra half MGD or so that we can have that buffer, so we can complete then the construction by the end of '28. And so June 26th, we'll bring another request to bring a design build team on to work on the design and the construction. Since that is an alternative delivery method, we'll have to do that through a resolution, so it'll be a 2-reading process. So just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming. Any questions on that? Great. My other update, I spoke a little bit about this at dinner tonight. And then also I do believe that Director Langley and Director Wasserman were on the email that I received from Representative Lauren Boebert's office, reached out to us. I think it was a mass email, but it felt very personal. So they reached out to us, letting us know that there was some funding opportunities for fiscal year 2026. Lauren Boebert has been very supportive of water and infrastructure projects. And so they do have a community project funding opportunity. It's a federal loan, or not a federal fund, it'd be grant money. And so she can submit up to 15 projects, and the funding opportunity would be between $1 million and $5 million per project. And so we have a couple of projects that we think would really fit the bill for these. One of them is the Water Conservation and Efficiency Demonstration Garden, could be a good opportunity. The Reservoir Oxygenation System. We have a couple of infrastructure projects that could bring renewable water from the WISE system into the reservoir, so that might be an opportunity as well. And then we have some generators in the budget also for reliability and resiliency of our system. Those would all fit quite nicely into the community project funding. They also have an additional form for just 2026 appropriations through different statutes. And so we're looking at that one as well, if there's any way to use our long-term water project for funding in that form as well. So we'll continue on that. It is a quick turnaround. The forms are due April 21st, so we'll get those put together and submitted and see what happens from there. Any questions?
Yeah, excuse me, I have a question. Are all 4 going to be submitted?
Yeah, we can submit as many projects as we can, and then her office will go through them, and they can only submit 15 from all of the different submissions that they get.
And we're still thinking of ideas, but this is where we're at today.
Yeah, this was our kind of first blush at projects that we would want to submit, and we can submit more as well.
We know Representative Boebert's very pro-storage. We think that's a good sign. She loves the conservation and the Native American story with this reservoir, so we think the conservation one might be something as well. So.
All right, thank you so much.
Hey, Don.
Yeah. Are there any guidelines that they've issued that, describe an objective of this funding? Are they trying to achieve, some sort of an outcome and
Well,
to kind of help tailor what you propose?
Sure. So in the write-up of it, what she was really looking for is projects that will benefit the taxpayers. So, I mean, that was the general gist of it is it good for the community? Is it justifiable that our taxpayers will be paying for this? And so that's really what the context is around it. So
It's pretty wide open.
it is, yeah. The first write-up that I did was for the Conservation Demonstration Garden, and really pointing out the benefits to the community, the benefit it'll have on our water resource, that the more they know about conservation and efficiency, the better we are for the longevity of our water resources. So really pointing out those things in our projects.
She did mention a focus on water and water infrastructure. So
Good evening. So it's that time of the month to give you a quick update on where our numbers are within operations. As we look through the wheel, we can look and see what the different areas of water, starting with our water reclamation facilities, averaging about 4.25 MGD. Cherry Creek flow, right at about 4 million gallons per day. Rudder Hess is, as Ron mentioned, up at 27,000 acre feet. And then our water plant producing 4.3 MGD in March. And our wells in March down to about 0.9 MGD. And the average production flow for March at 5.2 MGD.
Why do you think we produced more water in February than we did in March?
I honestly don't know exactly why there was
Kind
more.
of unusual
Yeah.
because, first of all, February's a little shorter than March. And,
Right.
and I don't think anybody's watering their lawn in February.
No.
Maybe in March they might have started.
That's right.
Okay, I was just curious.
So this is our production by source. As you can see in March, the difference between March 2025 and March 2024 is that in March 2025, most of the production was from the water plant, whereas last year was mostly from the wells due to some repairs and so forth. But our renewable for March, you can at 80%, so you can see that difference between using the wells and using our water plant.
So, James?
Yeah.
So for March, that looks like about 130 million gallons, give or take. Or is it on the side here? It's probably there. But I'm sorry, I see it in front of me now. I was looking at how much was Wise,
Okay.
okay? And it's on the side. Thank you. I answered my own question. That's okay, right?
Absolutely.
Takes the pressure off of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. Sorry.
Water quality calls. So in March, again, we had some more of the odor calls, a little bit of the other calls that we get that are associated with the odor and taste and odor. The end of May is when we're planning on doing our distribution cleansing, where we're going to switch from monochloramine to free chlorine for the summer period. And that should take care of these odor issues within our distribution system. Our communications department is working on getting this information out to everybody. We're in the planning stages right now. We've brought on a consultant to kind of put together a playbook for us so that we can switch between, the chloramines to free chlorine and then back to our chloramines. But this is something that happens with most municipalities that work off chloramines. Is occasionally you have to switch back to free chlorine, clean the system out really well, and then switch back. So this is something that's coming up, and we'll keep you informed and bring you along the way as we learn more. Locates right at about 1,400. And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none? What, did you do that?
No, I'm good.
Good evening. Not a lot of slides for me tonight as well, but I always like to end on a nice success story. Wanted to give you a brief update on our computer maintenance management system, which is Brightly. Guy has been working diligently to hit all of our milestones and make sure that we land these projects on time. I'm happy to say we have a go-live date now of July 17th, 2025, so right around the corner. We can successfully say that we've uploaded the asset register into the system, and we are working on quality control for it, making sure that everything's as expected, and we're reviewing that configuration and moving forward with some of our final discovery steps, and then we'll move on to quality control and training with our team. On the customer information system side, so SpryPoint, again, Guy and the team in customer care and billing are working through an iterative process of testing and challenging all of that data so that when we go live with our customers, we can ensure that it is accurate and reliable and consistent. So they just finished the second round of data conversion and configurations, the integration with GIS, so the mapping side of things, and then the integration with the financial system has been complete as well. They're now working on the billing statements, so what we show currently to our customers is accurate between the new billing statement and the old billing statement, and then they're reviewing those business processes to make sure they're in line with where we're going in the future. When we talk about go-live projections for that, we're looking at September 22nd, 2025. That's a Monday, so we will be doing that cutover on the weekend and ready to go Monday for our customers. Our final project we're working on diligently right now is EOPS. Happy to announce that that has gone live with our internal staff. We are now working on quality assurance, quality control for that, just make sure everything is as expected. We are working on the reports so we can develop metrics and KPIs that the team can utilize to make decisions, and then training our team and revisiting training so that they understand how the system works and how they can integrate future data sets moving forward. On the GIS side of the house, I love seeing pictures like this. This is the next generation of geographic information systems technicians in the world. We've got two of our full-time employees, Theo Luera, middle left, and Chris Fisher, middle right. They took both of our interns, who are both in college right now, up to the GIS Colorado Water User Group and presented on our Easy Map. And the Easy Map I brought to the board a couple weeks ago, talking about empowering our employees to develop their own maps and make decisions off of those maps themselves. Happy to announce, once that was deployed to our team, 30% of the district is actually using those maps. Apologize. 30% of the district has attended the trainings for those, and nearly all the departments are now using that map to develop their own systems and going from there. Any questions on that? One final comment. The microphones that you're using today, I finally have a go-live date for the new systems. We're expecting the second week of May. So we'll get the new systems in where we can hear better. That's all I have.
I think that's me. All right.
You.
Yeah, I hope everything went okay. In my absence in the last meeting, I talked to Nathan. He said he didn't say a word at the whole meeting. I said, that's perfect.
No, he did, because I asked him, his last name is Cash, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him if he was related to Norm Cash, the baseball player that used to play for the Tigers. And he actually is. It's his father's cousin.
Oh, no
So
way.
he said most people ask him about Johnny Cash, but he said not many ask him about
Oh,
Norm
that's
Cash.
funny. He has not told me that, so we'll have to keep that on the list. Yeah, he's also a real coffee aficionado. If you ever need any advice on how to make great coffee, that's his thing. So, yeah. So sorry I missed the meeting, but it sounds like I didn't miss too much legal stuff. I just wanted to really briefly just hit three issues that we're sort of dealing with right now. Platte Valley Water Partnership. I've been asked to have a memo prepared, just giving you all a basic summary of how sort of the federal permitting process goes, sort of the main issues with it, how it works, and how it might affect our project. So the attorney that we hired, his name's Nate Hunt. He's at Kaplan Kirsch. That's his specialty. He does a lot of federal permitting litigation, federal permitting work. And I've actually emailed him and left him a message. He hasn't called back yet. He's pretty busy. Asking him to get you guys a really quick memo, just giving you some information on how that works with relationship to the Platte Valley Water Project. And then if you have questions after that, or you want to have him come in or do a remote call, he would be happy to meet with you and go over any questions you have. So hope that's okay.
Question?
Yes, Dan. No.
While you're talking about the Platte Valley Water Partnership in your legal report, you noted that we were going to dismiss our claim to change our 2003 water rights.
Yes, that is on the table. I don't know if we've actually sent that over to our opposers. Rebecca, do you know?
It would be part of settlement discussions, and it hasn't been, I think, finalized, but we have talked about it with some of the opposers. And it's not that it is off the table to ever convert or put to municipality work. It would just not be part of this case. We would be able to do a different case for it.
So that would make our case maybe a lot more focused on the new water rights.
Absolutely, yeah, still
And
focused
kind of-
on that water right.
Yeah, and you know, I know enough about water law to be dangerous, but I've learned a lot over the last 15 years working for Parker Water. And I think the concept here is that that's one of the main issues the opposers focused on. We don't think we're going to lose that ability to do it in the future. And the question is, you know, is this something that we would be willing to give up in order to streamline the case and hopefully get some people out of the case and maybe really move towards a stipulation and a settlement of the whole thing?
Yeah, okay,
So,
that's what
yeah,
I thought.
we definitely wouldn't be doing that if we were going to lose that right in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah, good
okay,
question.
thank you.
Sure. Next one's the Douglas County Home Rule Project. I think you've all heard Douglas County is looking to, is considering becoming a home rule county. It's pretty unique. Weld County, I think, is the only other home rule county other than you have like Denver and Broomfield that have their own special rates. So I was asked to get you guys a memo addressing sort of how could that possibly affect Parker Water's operations? Could that have any impact on Parker Water? I'm working on it. The really fun part about it is that because Weld County is the only home rule county, there's almost nothing out there. There's like 2 cases on it. There is some statutory language. There's a constitutional provision dealing with it. And so I'm going to get you a memo sort of addressing what those powers could be. The short answer is I don't really see it having a huge impact on Parker Water. But you never know what somebody's going to do until they do something, and then you actually have something to look at and analyze. But I'll have something to you hopefully in a couple weeks.
I think that they're at the early point of getting the commission together, the group that will actually write the charter. And I would say it's smart to be involved or have a close ear to the people who are writing that charter when it comes to that point. So we're not trying to pick pieces up later,
Right.
but we can.
Yeah, I know. It's an outstanding question that everybody in the area is kind of wondering, like, how will it affect the town of Parker? How will it affect other providers of water? Those kinds of issues. And, it's not a secret, but there's nothing in the statutes that are not home rule statutes that really address the authority to provide water and sewer services as a county. But home rule counties absolutely have, at least in the statute, the authority to provide water service. But that authority doesn't extend to incorporated municipalities. And so the real question is, what could they possibly look to do in the unincorporated areas of the county? How would that affect Parker Water? So we'll do a little work and hopefully get you some background on that. But given the lack of law on it, there's not going to be a lot of really specific, hard conclusions, I don't think. So.
One of the things I asked Jeff to do is there's a chance there's a memo presentation to the board on this that can't be given out, but I've gotten calls from Castle Pines and Parker asking for our thoughts on this and how it may impact us. One of the individuals is on the rulemaking, one of the 21, and she just wants to know our thoughts, and I really don't have any, so if Jeff's going to put it together for you guys, we can have something I can hand out to our community. So,
Well, probably by the end of May, maybe end of April, it's coming up quickly, there'll be an election for those who are going to be drawing that charter.
The committee.
We're hosting a polling place, so I know it's in
Yeah,
June, right?
that's the regular primary date, but this is separate from that, I think.
Oh.
It may be on the primary, but they've got to get the draft of it together first. And that's
Yeah, it's a bit of a process.
yeah, it is.
Yeah. You know, and, I mean, there's a lot of case law on home rule municipalities,
Yeah,
what they
but-
can and can't do, but not home rule counties. And so, you know, the question is, what are the courts going to borrow from counties, municipalities? And, I mean, it's just kind of speculative at this point, but,
But
Yeah, but it's good
the
to
big
be-
deciding factor is what goes into that charter.
right.
And once they put the charter together and they put it to a vote, that's a little bit after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. And the other point is, you know, with the charter can only do what it's allowed to do. You can't make a charter that gives you more power than you're allowed under the Constitution and the statutes.
Yeah.
The charters can certainly be less broad. You know, a charter can actually restrict the powers to less than are allowed under the statutes. So, you know, that could be something to consider as well. If we're not that excited about the county providing water services, but, you know, maybe they could provide a benefit. You know, if they have that authority, they could do that. And they're already doing it. They had an option previously with WISE, right? So they, at least at some point, felt like they had the authority even without the home rule authority. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Just a thought, back on the permitting. I think the administrative posture in DC is such that anything we can do on permitting sooner rather than later is going to be to our advantage on the project. And I'd love to see us in front of the curve on that, even though construction may come later, but that permitting can be the slow process. And I think the general tenor in Washington right now is in our favor, so I wouldn't want it to slip by.
Rebecca can speak to that too. We've already had a number of conversations about how we're going to get this moving and what's the first step in permitting and how do we posture it. And so, yeah, it's definitely being thought about right now.
Yep, absolutely. Especially once the water court trial is complete, we will be all steam ahead with permitting.
I'm glad you got a outside professional working on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something that I don't specialize in. So you got a lot of professionals working on the permitting actually, but the lawyer will be good. He's a good lawyer.
Yeah, I saw him speak at the South Platte River Forum and was impressed with him then, and then didn't even realize it was the same attorney that Jeff was recommending. And so I was like, oh, he was great.
Good. Okay, good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, he won't let you down. So, and then the last issue is water purification facility. There's still experts taking a look at this, analyzing the issues, trying to provide more information about what exactly the cause is, what the fixes could be. And I believe it's April 24th. We're planning on having a presentation to the board, an executive session, because there's some legal issues involved. And it's basically going to be our main consultant, who's really got a pretty good handle on where she thinks we're heading with this, and she's going to give you a brief report on basically how we got to the situation that we're in, where we are right now, and options to move forward. And then I can give you a real brief summary of our legal options, and we can have a conversation about that. That should be on the 24th. So hopefully get you a little more background understanding as to what's happening at the plant.
Yeah, I don't know if this is for Jeff, Ron, or James or Rebecca, but so we've ordered 200 replacement.
250, I was wrong in my email, 250.
250
Yeah.
replacement filters, the ceramic,
Yes.
right, ceramic membranes. I don't remember exactly what the estimated cost of that was. It was $5,000 a piece or something?
It's a little below 5,000. Total cost, shipping, I believe it's 800 plus thousand.
For the ones that are coming, the latest ones that are coming by air.
So we ordered 100 of them, I don't remember, it was a few months ago, to replace the ones that are broken. And at the time, I think when we ordered them, there were 65 or so broke. Now we're up to 91.
91.
Yeah. So that first 100 will be used to go in there. And then there's a concern that it's a fatigue type of a thing.
Yeah.
And you can have a catastrophic failure. So we wanted to have more on in case in the July, August timeframe something happened. And so hopefully we have a decent approach to get our money back, but they take several months to get here. And we thought just
And
been
they're-
prior.
and they're coming-
From Japan or?
They are.
That was where I was going. Right, they're coming from Japan, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah. One.
have
the
you
first set-
factored in, or do you have any idea how to do that yet? The extra cost of tariffs?
The tariffs, I believe, are 10%. And so they were 3% when we started this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're aware of that. So
So-
the first set is already here. Well, it's in America. I think it's in Utah, right?
It's either in Utah or in Oakland. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where, one of the
And
two.
the other ones, you know, we decided to fly them here. It was about twice as much shipping, but it measured in weeks and not months. And so if we would have went by shipping, they would have showed up after our peak demand, which then they're of no value. So
We watched the ship come across the Pacific online. Each day we had an update in operations on where the ship was.
so we know those ships do. Is it 24 miles an hour or
Yeah,
kilometer?
24 miles per hour.
24 miles an hour. So
24 hours a day.
yeah.
Those are knots, not miles per hour.
That was miles per hour. The knots.
They converted it.
They converted
for
it.
us Navy people.
Yeah, no, it's a complicated issue, but it's kind of like a detective mission, figuring out all the different options, and it's just taking time. So I don't think we've basically got any sort of, well, we'll talk about the legal issues in executive session. So, and that's all I had for you tonight.
Okay. Approval of minutes for the March 27th meeting. Do we have any modifications, adjustments, corrections? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved?
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have a vote?
Yes.
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 Accounts payable, March 16th to 31st. Anybody have any questions that haven't been answered already?
No, I don't.
Seeing none, do we have a motion?
So moved?
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second, do we have a vote?
Yes.
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 Informational discussion, strategic plan, information only.
All right, this evening, we're going to have Billy Owens come up and talk about our 2025 strategic plan. She was here about a month ago and gave us our report card on our 2024. We did pretty good. You can tell we tried, which is what I tell my kids, as long as I know you tried. And so this evening, she's going to be talking about our 2025 proposed outcomes.
Great to be back with you guys. Excited to talk tonight about our proposed 2025 strategic outcomes, and hopefully you had a chance to read it. And I'm just going to hit on some highlights, but if you have any more in-depth questions, we can always do it offline too. Ron and me together could set some times up. But I think the key that I really want to point out is that the yearly strategic plan is created to maintain our dynamic roadmap of outcomes that continually support our organizational goals and objectives. So it's exciting because the momentum behind the program is continuing to build. I just wanted to take you down kind of give you some context around how the plan was developed, to just kind of remember how we did it. The key drivers that help us build the strategic plan are around our leading factors that impact our services and help us perform to meet our customer commitments. And those focus mainly on long-term water demands and striving towards our highest reasonability to deliver renewable water to ensure that the resource is sustainable. Growth, we like to keep our eyes on the growth trends, whether it's through our own development pipeline or in the region. Let's see, in '24, I think we sold 788 SFEs, which put us over a total number of accounts, about 21,400. Our target sale in '25 is over 500 SFEs, which will probably be somewhere 800 accounts potentially. Then there's fiscal sustainability, maintaining our finances at a reasonable rate that is a serviceable position over time, and that allows us to survive those driving forces that we have to withstand, and safeguarding our customers' investment and their expectations. The next thing I wanted to touch on was these are some high-level points that or discussed when developing our budget, which is consistent with our strategic planning. They all probably look really familiar. Our core mission services, water and wastewater capacities for our water and wastewater infrastructure and supply, our water quality, making sure that we're meeting our primary requirements and keeping our eye on our upcoming regulatory compliance regulations, repair and replacement of our existing infrastructure and maintaining it, security, whether that's physical or cyber, technology, keeping up with automation, work management systems, and our other core systems. Workforce development is keeping our investment in our employees with training, salaries, benefits, and our wellness program. Reasonable rate adjustments, ensuring that we can keep smaller incremental rate adjustments to meet our long-term needs, but also promoting efficiencies along the way. Of course, conservation, that's another big one. Communications, strengthening that, communications with our customers, stakeholders, and partners. And strategic planning, ensuring that we're consistent with our planning processes and keeping ourselves accountable. And then that regional utility focus, leveraging our location and fostering those partnerships that we have over time. Now I wanted to go through just our high level of our goals. We have our planning, our demonstrating effective and aligned planning principles, empowerment, growing and engaging our team, excellence, which is responsibly managing our business, relationships, actively collaborating with our stakeholders, partnerships, and the like, even in the industry. This plan reflects the commitment to continually improve and identifies the need for accountability within that process and how we can, it can guide us intentionally and help us make better decisions. I wanted to review on a high level the objectives and outcomes for each goal area. Not quite down to the project management level, but if there's some detailed questions, I have some of the sponsors here that can help answer as well. So I'm breaking it down by goal area. Our planning, demonstrating effective and aligned planning principles, that is within our supply and infrastructure planning, that first objective. It's our long-term water solutions, our gap between now and then for higher reusable and renewable sources, as well as efficiency, and effectively growing our capital and replacement structure, infrastructure. Our number 2 is our investment in rigorous financial planning, developing and using effective fiscal strategies. A key component of this year is replacing our retiring CFO over there. And there's a lot going on in the financial area right now, things about increasing costs and the tariffs and things like that. Then there's a lot of work and going towards discussing those things. There's strategic planning, refining how we'd implement and adjust our program to align our business practices with informing our decisions today and into the future. There's our staff master planning. This has really been key in refining how we define our staffing needs and our supportive organizational structures that help us supply service levels to our customers. And then our technology is, there's work around developing a 5-year plan in that group, associated technology and governance processes for prioritization, selection, and implementation, as well as keeping our core systems up to speed. Any questions around some of that? If not tonight, I can talk about it forever some other time. Awesome. So for our next one is empowerment, growing and engaging our team. This is around being that employer of choice with programs and systems that promote the growth and development of staff, maximizing their engagement, and tapping into that, nearly unlimited resource for optimization and innovation. So our first one is the high-quality employees, making sure that we're attracting and retaining those folks. developing a coaching culture that has several sub-level components that include tools to help strengthen individual talents as well as strengthening teams. The second one is having that supportive organizational structure that's needed in order to support the teams, and a lot of succession planning focuses planned this year. We also have continuing focus on our safety culture in the organization, as well as continuing our health and wellness elements that benefit not only employees, but the organization as a whole. Then effective internal communications, and really it's going to be focusing on how are staff reacting to the outreach elements that we have in place now and what might want to do more within the next year. Any questions on that? Awesome. Then we have excellence, responsibly managing our business. And this is where the water and wastewater magic happens. Excellence is about responsibly managing our business, and the first one is really about optimization, and that means looking at how we can be more efficient, what we're already doing to be more efficient, optimizing what we do, and then creating an innovation program that has a dedicated team associated with it. Then there's high-quality core water services, which keeps us on the path of efficiently and effectively meeting our water quality requirements through regulatory compliance strategies, and then keeping our finger on the pulse of new upcoming contaminants of concern that we might want to be preparing for and being engaged in their approval. Then there's our risk management for both physical and cyber security through our resilience objective. Any questions on that one? Okay. Then our last one here is our relationships, our active collaboration. A lot of work has gone on in that one in 24 and as well as already in 25. Our first one is about our customer relations, and that has a lot of things going on. You'll hear about the survey tonight. Citizens Academy and active engaging with our agencies that we serve. So the Town of Parker, Lone Tree, Castle Pines, and then developing strong board of director regional activities, and that can be like SDA and those kind of things, and some of the committees. We also have the partnerships component in our second objective, which is our regional relationships, whether that's focusing on Reuter-Hess Reservoir interface, other water agencies, and representative organizations, as well as some rural extraterritorial service genesis that's going on. Also, we have our relationship within the industry, a lot of cooperation on industry training and employment opportunities, whether that's through our leadership training or the apprenticeship program that's going on, whether that's AWWA or the Emily Griffith Foundation. A lot of work's going on with that. And then we have our active regulatory and legislative relationships. There's a team that works on that pretty proactively, monthly basis, keeping their finger on the pulse of industry, administrative legislation, and water regulatory activities that are going on, and developing internally managed framework that we develop the organization's position, whether it's on existing or upcoming legislative and regulatory activities. I think you've probably heard about some of the positive things that have happened with that. And so that's a major focus for 2025. Any questions on that? Okay. So again, our 2025 focus is really to do that less better. We talked about last time how, we're a very driven group, and we almost always bite off more than we can chew. But I think one of the things that I'm excited about is that this program, the strategic planning, has allowed us to really focus and keep top of mind what are the things that we need to be focusing on to effectively serve our customers. And the other thing is to continue our business process alignment with our strategic business practices. That can be things like our budgeting component components, as well as effectively identifying what it is we want to do, and then coming back and reporting how that's done, as well as one of the other things that I'm going to be trying to focus on as well is creating a communication strategy, especially with our managers, to help that be top of mind when we're doing our work on a daily basis, but also keeping our future in mind of how that'll meet our goals and objectives. Because sometimes it's really hard when you have so much going on, is to focus and use our strategic objectives and principles to help us make good decisions. And any questions?
Underlying the whole planning, I'm always concerned about what our staffing level is. And I'm curious if you happen to look at what the number of employees per SFE is, if that's been a constant number, if it's been decreasing or whatever. To me, it seems like that would be an indicator with all the growth and all the transitions that we've got going on. We could very easily be short of employees, and you end up losing employees because they're overworked. On the other hand, you can be a little bit too fat if you're not watching. I'm just curious if you, in the process of the planning, if you considered that.
That is one of the things that that the industry does as a benchmark, and we have some information around that. So I think it would be a good number to kind of keep in mind. The challenge is to say, our organization is a little bit different than some of the ones that are out there that AWWA benchmarks, but that's a really good number to keep in mind. And it also can be related to how we do business internally. Some efforts that we have, it's definitely a staff focus. Some are, we might want to increase interns or seasonal folks, or we might actually want to have that as a contract service. So that's some of the other things that we're looking at related to the staffing program. But I think that is a really good number to have available. So I can try to do that.
Director Klotz, that's a good question, and it's one of the difficulties out there. So the benchmarking that we do through AWWA is helpful, but they give you an idea. When we look at customer service reps per account type of thing, that matches us pretty good because we are a water and wastewater utility. There's a lot of those out there, and we can get a good range. But when it comes to like operators, it's more difficult because some operators only operate the buttons that work the plant. Ours tend to have some SCADA background and stuff. So, but it does give you a range to see where we're in. One of the things in operations, which is by far the largest group they're almost done with, is really identifying the service levels. Because, and it's a great thing, your staff is awesome at this. They want to do everything 120%, and we love that. But sometimes 100% is good. And so James and his team are just trying to define service levels and look at it and say, you know what, we probably don't have to go to that level to meet an excellent service. So
I'd be more concerned at a macro level than at a micro departmental level, because that kind of evolves. We may be heavier on IT now than we were 10 years ago. And maybe due to the nature of equipment or other things, maybe some other areas are less dependent. But I would be comparing to ourselves year over year instead of the industry, because we're relatively unique in a lot of ways.
I heard it's a simple one. It's why I like it. Snow plowing. We do a lot of our own snow plowing. But our guys are here middle of the night, and when we show up, we have a clean parking lot and clean sidewalks and stuff. But like James said, every vehicle we have is a four-wheel drive. We probably don't have to have that same level of service to a well house. And so what can we do to back off and eventually get to it in a reasonable time? So we're doing a lot of work there. The staffing is always a difficult thing. And I'm looking for others that do this, but really we focus in the 1 year, the 3 years pretty good, and then we capture what people think in 10 years. And then there's a lot of discussion because it's easy to come up with 10 people, but we budget for somewhere between 2 and 4 a year. And, we've come in over that and we've been able to do that, but it's just really looking at priorities and where we absolutely need it. And if we have the ability to do more, then we go to the next level. So it's an interesting process. We engage all those, the managers and supervisors, so we get a lot of input. And probably what we haven't done in the past, but we have in the last couple of years, is everyone's in their room, so they hear everyone else's needs. And all of a sudden, it isn't my silo I'm worried about, it's the district. So we're learning as we're going, but it's certainly a focus.
I think the staffing process has been one of the most interesting ones over the past couple years, and I think it's really done that educational thing across divisions. And I think the service level will be key to helping inform those decisions even more based on priorities.
Yeah, and Billy has done a deep dive of staffing over the last 20 years, seeing how many staff we've had, which department they've been in, and comparing it to, how many customers we've had and things like that. It's really, it's almost fun to look at. You can get lost in the numbers, making all of the different comparisons. But it's really valuable information to have.
And it shows how we have shifted how we might want to do certain kinds of work. Like I said, some things are contracted, some things are consulted, but some things are done in-house because the efficiency of effectiveness of that finally kicked it over that it's more efficient for us to do it that way than other ways. And some things, it just allowed us to be able to prioritize which staffing is the key to success from that 1 to 3 year. Now, the 10 year is a little hazy, but what's great is that each division has that. And they can actually see their own numbers against everyone else's in the organization. It's really nice.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Information discussion, customer survey.
All right, so I'll go ahead and we have a guest speaker tonight to I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Thank you all, and thanks for your time tonight. As you can see there, I'm going to be presenting the results of a community survey that we launched at the end of January and completed in February of this year. You can see there on the left side of the screen a text message that went out to a sample of residents within the district boundaries, basically inviting them to participate in this important survey just to gauge perception, support, awareness of ongoing projects and programs. We completed 787 interviews. And again, this is from January 22nd to February 5th of this year, if you're curious about the timing. So that's really a really good number to hang our hat on. I mean, if you think about the number of accounts that you all have as far as customer accounts, it's, I believe, just over 21,000. So we're talking somewhere just above 3% of those completing the survey, which for any kind of public opinion survey is it sounds really low, but it's actually a pretty good place to hang your hat. 3.46 is our margin of error. And important to note also where possible, we asked a few demographic questions so that we could weight the results to make sure that they represent the population demographics within the district. So let's get right into it. First question we asked, just kind of icebreaker type questions before we really get into specifics. How would you rate the district's service and reliability? Really, really strong measurement here to have 46% saying excellent, another 39% saying good. So to be over 80% saying good, I mean, this is really kind of top tier of any kind of government service. And we do a lot of this kind of community surveys, not just for water and sanitation districts, but for cities, counties, school districts, all other kind of special districts. Rarely do you see the excellent plus good to be over 80. So again, no red flags here at all, nothing to be concerned about. I'm not going to touch much on the demographic subgroups there on the right side of the screen. We did want to include those just to see if there were any interesting or significant differences, but in general, there weren't. How would you rate the value of the district services for the cost? Obviously, anytime you ask about value, it's going to drop off a little bit, but still to be over half saying excellent or good, 13% saying excellent. again, this is above average. This is higher than we would typically see. 27% saying fair, 13% saying poor, 7% don't have an opinion. So again, no red flags here. To have a majority saying either excellent or good value for the cost is a great place to start. Water quality, again, we're well above 50%, 21% saying excellent, 43% saying good. You have about a quarter there saying fair, 11% saying poor. So again, this is a strong measurement. The next question we ask kind of sheds a little bit of light on this. Have you experienced issues with your water quality in the past year? And 38% said yes. So that matches the percent that said fair or poor. It's about 4 percentage points higher. So maybe some folks did, but now it's been resolved, whatever the case may be. So 38% yes, 62% no in terms of experiencing water quality issues in the past year. Okay, talking a little bit more about the future in a planning sense or perception of what the district is doing. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? The district will be able to provide long-term water solutions for my community. And again, they're pretty confident in the district's ability to do that. 70% agree, 16% disagree, 14% no opinion. So that's again, it's a great place to start in terms of they already are there, they already believe, okay, even if I don't know the specifics of the plan, I have confidence that the district is going to be able to provide these long-term solutions for my community. Like I said, they don't really know the specifics, right? So talk about how familiar are you with the Platte Valley Water Partnership? Only 4% very familiar, 23% somewhat familiar, but then you have 68% who say not familiar at all with the Platte Valley Water Partnership. And this to me is not really surprising. We saw on the previous slide that they're confident in the plans, but that doesn't mean that they know the specifics of the plans, right? And so this just kind of shows a starting point for, nearly 7 out of 10 of these residents aren't familiar with that partnership.
Question.
Oh, yeah.
On the previous slide, you had 70% that totally agreed that we're going to provide the long-term service, and you say that's confidence. Could you also read that to mean that maybe there's a disconnect there and people aren't even thinking about that? I mean, they just kind of like take it for granted?
Sure, yeah, I mean, I guess I would say if they're not thinking about it and they're just taking it for granted, maybe they would say no opinion. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they would say that no matter what water district they lived in. Maybe it's just not something that's on their radar, and they just say, of course.
Tap opens, it comes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, there could be a little bit of that in there as well, for sure. How familiar are you with the Water and Sanitation District's summer watering restrictions? Okay, we certainly have some more familiarity here. 34% are very familiar, 43% somewhat familiar. This is obviously something that hits a little bit closer to home than like a long-term plan about the partnership where, yep, I'm familiar with those because, even if they don't bug me, my neighbor always complains about them or, whatever the case may be. It's more of like a word of mouth thing. But even still, 1 in 5 say they're not familiar at all with watering restrictions during the summer. We wanted to also get a sense, among these respondents of whether they're using the water efficiency programs or discounts that the district has on offer. Nearly a quarter are using the AquaHawk customer portal. I don't know if that necessarily aligns with kind of internal data that you all may have, but that's as far as these respondents are concerned. But what's interesting is 2 out of 3 say none, is they're not availing themselves of any of these water efficiency programs or discounts. Yeah.
So, I mean, you see how that aligns with the data we have. So we have GUI data, right? The big spreadsheet data, 9,477 people enrolled in AquaHawk. And if you take that as a percent of residents, I'm just going to assume they're mostly residents, but that's about 47% are enrolled, but only 24% are saying they actively use it. So it's, I don't know if that's telling us a little bit about AquaHawks maybe still a little awkward. They might look from time to time, maybe get tired. Maybe it looks good enough, but it looked like You know, we've talked about getting better at Aquahawk. Maybe this is even a little more data that says, keep looking and looking hard at it, so.
Sure.
That's great.
And yeah, the other ones, you know, smaller, we're talking below 10% in terms of slow the flow, garden in a box, irrigation system rebates, things like this. Obviously on this one, we gave them a chance, like if they're using more of them, they could select all that apply. They couldn't.
Yeah, there's limited availability on all of those. Sure.
What was the phraseology? Was it do you use, or are you aware of?
No, so this is actual usage. This isn't awareness. This is do they use specifically.
I would guess that awareness is much higher.
Sure. Yeah, that certainly is going to be the case. But yeah, this is actual usage. Always an interesting question to ask here. Do you know the amount of your average monthly water bill in the summer? And you see there it's very well grouped towards those first two responses of 150 or less, or 150 to 300. That's where 3 out of 4 responses are at. 14% of them say don't know. I mean, again, we're doing this in February. If we did it in the middle of the summer, that don't know might drop off a little bit because they'd be a little bit more aware. But again, this is at least their self-reported answer for what their average monthly water bill is in the summer. And we really asked this to set up the next question: what do you think is a reasonable amount to pay for your monthly summer water bill in relation to the amount of water you use? And 69% say 150 or less. 21% say 150 to 300. And I should say, we don't have like a wealth of data asking these similar questions in all kinds of other water districts, but we did do a fairly similar survey in Castle Pines Metro District back in 2022. And on these two questions, the numbers are very similar. I know that's not a perfect comparison to you all, but it is at least geographically, close to you all, where they had roughly 73, 74% who are in these first two groups here. And then they had just over 80% saying, I believe that a reasonable amount would be in these first two groups here. And so again, that 8% don't know. They're like, why are you asking me this? I have absolutely no idea. But for the most part, a significant majority are saying $150 or less per month. Which of the following statements do you believe is true? 32% say my water rates are higher than neighboring communities. Only 5% say my water rates are lower than neighboring communities. 63% say unsure, no opinion, that never gave it any thought, right? And again, comparing it to that last survey that we did in Castle Pines Metro District 3 years ago, 31% of them said their water rates are higher than neighboring communities. So pretty similar measurement there. It's a little bit of a, hey, the grass is always greener thing. It's just a perception that, is going to affect some people's, feelings toward the district if they really believe that. So it's just interesting to kind of see this measurement. But the most important number there, I think, is the 63% that just say, not sure, I don't sit around comparing us to other communities. So we're going to get into a little bit more specifics here in terms of their awareness of all kinds of different things: water supply and quality, infrastructure, programs, et cetera. And after reading the information, please indicate if you're aware or unaware of the information. And the one that they're most aware of is just generally talking about the steps that need to be taken in order to ensure safe drinking water. This one, just in general, like half of the respondents said, yep, I understand, like that makes sense. Like all the agencies and everything, we have to do the testing in order to have safe drinking water, not surprising. This one had much higher awareness than the others, as you'll see, because when we get to the next slide, only 30% are aware of the district increasing water rates in 2025. Now, part of that is it was a fairly recent change, so there wasn't a lot of time for them to be made aware of it, right? But at the same time, okay, this is an increase in water rates that 30% of them are aware of, but 70% of them weren't aware of. Talking about the existing water supply sources, again, roughly 30%, 28% are aware of water supply sources, but 72% say they're not aware of those. And again, I would say this is pretty typical when we do a survey like this. You're going to have a highly engaged group that's somewhere between 20 to 30% of residents, but the majority are those who just, they're going to take the survey, they're going to engage if we ask them to, but generally they're not following super closely, all that the district is doing, and we see that in these next slides as well. Talking about the district's goal is to build a water resource portfolio that's 75% renewable. Talking about projected growth, projected to double by 2040. Only 21% are aware that that's going on. 79% are unaware. Launching the Platte Valley Water Partnership. Again, we saw before that not a lot of folks are familiar with the Platte Valley Water Partnership. 81% say they're unaware. 19% say they're not only aware of the partnership, but also what it will do for the district in terms of access to 17,000 acre feet of reliable renewable water from the Platte River. And then here was the last one that we introduced, the idea that the district has worked to install filtration in well houses that should greatly reduce discolored water. Not a lot of awareness that that's going on, which overall, I think it's tempting to look at the awareness and say, yeah, that's pretty discouraging. I wish that awareness was higher. I would say, having done a lot of this kind of community surveys, one, there's only so much you can do, right? I mean, there's over 21,000 accounts that you all have. And, in terms of actual residents, it's not quite double that, but it's over 40,000. And so a lot of, it just takes a ton of work to really kind of boost up this awareness in a district this size. But that being said, you all have pretty strong measurements and a lot of kind of your benchmarks that we saw at the beginning of the survey. So even with the little bit lower awareness, they're still happy with what the district is doing. Now we're going to talk about support for solutions that are either being implemented or considered to address water infrastructure and supply within the district. So for these, we're actually not talking about awareness. We want to know if they support or oppose each of these different solutions. And these are ranked in terms of percentage that support them. So overwhelming support for the goal of the district's water resource portfolio being at least 75% renewable. 83% support that goal, including 51% who say, yes, I strongly support that goal. So significant kind of agreement there among respondents, where only 6% oppose the goal of being 75% renewable. They may not know exactly what that means, but they like the sound of it, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, fast forward a little bit. I think in the comments, in the document that you gave us, it looked like there was an unawareness of our customers on what renewable water is, right? I mean, that was in one of the comments. It's maybe they're not sure what that means.
Sure.
But here they're like, well, okay, it kind of sounds good. So it certainly made me think one of the things we want to look at is defining that better and why it's important. Of course, the other thing that popped out in that data in the back too, people are maybe associating the renewable water with growth and thinking, well, that's how we're going to manage the growth, and maybe not really realizing that we're talking about replacing, our sources with a new renewable source. So I thought there was some interesting insights that popped out there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think just the term renewable is, yeah, that sounds great, but
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily imply that there's...
Non-renewable wouldn't feel so good, right?
Right.
Oh, I don't think I want that, right?
But it doesn't necessarily imply that there's a ton of familiarity with what renewable means, specifically in this sense.
Yeah.
Again, 71%, so also a lot of support for this solution, where we're talking about supporting monthly water budgets for commercial, streetscapes, HOAs, non-residential properties. A lot of folks say, yeah, that sounds good. And there were even folks, there was, again, kind of chatter in those verbatim responses that you mentioned that just perceived waste among HOAs and, in certain areas where they say, yeah, let's cut that out. Let's adopt some monthly water budgets for these kind of properties. You'll see when you do ask them about residential properties, you get a different answer that we'll get to in a little bit here. But 71% are pretty much on board with this solution. and still up there around 70%. We actually shared this graphic with them in terms of the rate and fee schedule and asked, do you support the use of a tiered system for water rates? And 68% support, 28% strongly, 40% somewhat support. So they're generally on board with this solution as well in terms of introducing them to this idea of a tiered system that some of them may have been familiar with, but I would bet that a lot of them weren't. And now we drop off to 53%. And you know, I think we have some idea, again, from those verbatim responses in terms of why we see the drop off. But here we're talking about the Platte Valley Water Partnership and describing a little bit about what that would mean to support the Platte Valley Water Partnership. So in 2025, the fee is $3 per month. Then next year projected to $4.50. Eventually additional cost could be $20 per month or more. I think that's where we lose a lot of folks. They say, well, 20% or $20 per month or more, okay, like it sounds like we're getting to be, you know, pretty expensive, at least for some folks. And, you know, it's not a majority. 53% still support the Platte Valley Water Partnership, even knowing these details. But that kind of drives up the opposition a little bit when you talk about the actual cost that may be involved in terms of these impact fees. So this to me is not surprising at all to see this one drop off a little bit, because we're letting them under the hood a little bit, and we're giving them those specifics about additional costs that are necessarily going to spook some of the respondents. So,
Yeah, would I be wrong? I mean, I kind of read that, and maybe I'm looking a little bit to the opposite of what you do, but I mean, to me, that said like 4 out of 10 people said $20 a month, right? Because that's the nut of the question is, this is going to go to $20 a month. 38% are opposed. Well, 47. Well, there's no opinion. I'm sorry. 38%. I call that 4 out of 10 people saying maybe we're approaching a threshold here. Maybe not there yet. You know, $20 doesn't sound real horrible, but it's starting to maybe put a little pressure on them. Am I trying to read too much into that? Or
no,
is that fair?
I don't think so. And, you know, I think for some folks that are, you know, generally more inclined to be fiscally conservative, that or more is doing a lot of work there.
Yeah, I mean, there's
$20 per month or more. Well, what does that mean? What could it be? Right?
There's a fair measure of our customers that are stressed. I mean,
Right.
with you know, cost of living
Fixed
across the
incomes.
board, and
Right.
So I don't know if I don't want to read too much into that, but it makes me think there's maybe a little bit of is there a ceiling there maybe or not? I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell. I mean, I do know if you look at our neighbors in East Cherry Creek, they're over $30, and Castle Rock's over $30 already, where we're sitting at $3. So it'd be communicating the need as we go forward over the years, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I look at the 53%. I'm probably more the glass half full approach.
So you like the 6 out of 10?
Yeah, I like the 6 out of 10. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think.
It does speak to, you know, just some work that could be done to educate. Like, even if that does seem like a high number to them, why is it necessary? Right? You know, it's just an opportunity to say, you know, for those folks that are hesitant, let us give you a little bit more information about it, right?
Well, I see this as strictly informational and strictly educational. It's like, okay, so it's going up. We've been told it's going to go up, and here's why. Over the next how many years? It isn't tomorrow morning, it's over the next 20 years or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
No surprises.
And like I said, when we talk about adopting monthly water budgets for residential properties, that's where you actually do fall below 50%, but still 49%, so still a plurality would support monthly water budgets for residential properties. 37%, so a similar number that would oppose from that previous question, but then you have a higher no opinion, 14%. I'm not really sure what to make of it. So really, you know, when you look at kind of the continuum of all these different solutions where, if we back up to these, you know, renewable, okay, are they sure what that means? Not all of them, some of them are, but that's out of the park. 71% on non-residential properties. The tiered system, yep, they're on board with that, and then we see a drop off here and here, so.
I thought that, again, trying to maybe read too much into it, but I thought the 37% of people that are looking at their neighbors and saying, well, they're wasting water and they ought to be on a budget, but,
Yeah, right. Sure, yeah. No,
And I just want to be clear to the board and those watching that we asked the question to gauge the community, but we actually don't have any plans on the books to do water budgets for residentials.
Right.
We got a couple of years, several years, just to get the HOAs on there. So just want to make sure that's clear.
Sure, yeah.
I agree.
Agree, disagree statements really get into some interesting statements about perception here. Every resident needs to play their part in ensuring we maintain our water supply. 89% agree, right? There's not a lot of folks that say, well, no, it's not my job because, like, oh, my neighbor's the one who's causing all the problems. It's like, no, this is a kind of a collective action problem, or at least or even not problem, but just something that they need to get together as, every resident plays their own part. There's not a lot of disagreement with that. The other two that we asked, the district has enough water, therefore water efficiency plans are not needed. So nearly a quarter agree with that statement in terms of we don't need to be doing a lot of this stuff. And so a lot of the opposition to we saw on those previous slides, I think it's pretty safe to infer that a lot of it is these folks. Like, I don't support my costs going up because I don't think we need to do any of this stuff. I think we're going to be fine. We don't need to be making these plans. So that's just something to contend with, maybe some education there in terms of, okay, here's why we're doing these, and just shedding light a little bit on the district's process from like a transparency standpoint. But 64% disagree, right? And so a clear majority says, no, we do need to be instituting some of these plans. The third question we asked is, by the time there's any sort of water issue, I will no longer be in the district, right? Kind of important to see, is that kind of the frame that folks are taking when you're asking about these things? 21% agree, 55% disagree, 24% say, I'm actually not sure, right? And so you do have those basically 1 in 4, 1 in 5 that aren't quite there even from the very beginning with a lot of this stuff, but you have clear majorities that are.
But that's your senior citizens that aren't planning on living 20 years for the project, so.
Sure, yeah, no, yeah, for sure, some of them, yeah.
This metric was actually better than I thought it'd be because I think people are staying in their homes longer, but it wasn't that many years ago, 10 plus years ago. Turnover in homes was quick, and people didn't want to pay more money because they knew they'd be gone in 5 years. So this is actually encouraging.
Sure.
It's a lot better than I thought.
Obviously, there's a lot of great info in this question, which is why we typically do ask a question like this, where it's an open-ended, do you have any additional thoughts or opinions you'd like to share with Parker Water and Sanitation District? And, I'll tell you that just in general, whenever we ask a question like this, because it's not required that they answer it, we generally do get more negative comments in this kind of question. Those folks that are super happy and pleased with everything, sometimes they'll say, nope, thank you for the survey. But there's just, this provides an opportunity or an outlet for people to talk about things like, for example, overdevelopment and growth that they didn't have a chance to talk about earlier in the survey at any point. And so a lot of them pin a lot of these issues on the fact that Parker is growing too quickly. So they're talking about new subdivisions, businesses, apartment complexes, and they say, look, this is what's caused the problem in terms of the existing water supply and infrastructure, is we can't keep up with this development. And so quite a few of them call for, one, stricter limits on building permits, but also passing on the cost to developers to offset some of these impacts. That is something that is incredibly common whether you're dealing with water or transportation infrastructure or anything else up and down the Front Range in Colorado. A lot of people will pin the issues on growth and say, hey, why aren't developers doing more to cover some of these costs. And it's just a perception that's out there for a lot of folks. Then you just have the rising cost and fees, how they keep going up, and there's concern, like we talked about a little bit about people on fixed incomes, and they just can't keep up. And again, they view themselves as existing customers who shouldn't bear the brunt for growth-related projects and development. Some mention water quality. Again, we saw earlier that 38% have had some issue with either color or taste in the last month. So that's a lot of these folks. Conservation and efficiency. Again, we talked a little bit about those common areas where water waste by HOAs and just wanting to kind of crack down on those things a little bit. Some folks support xeriscaping, turf removal incentives, just revising kind of HOA policies that maybe allow more water-saving landscapes and turf and things like that. Some note the need to secure long-term water solutions. Okay, so these are the folks that are a little bit more of that future-oriented, maybe a little bit more aware of what you all are doing, because they're specifically mentioning things like, expanding reservoirs like Ruder Hess, calling for more proactive and transparent planning. And then you have communication and engagement. That's very typical. Anytime we do a community survey, they say, yep, we just want to know more from you. We want to know more about how these costs are set, where the money's going, how decisions are made. A lot of calls for simpler, more transparent billing. Okay, that's pretty typical as well. And they just want to know more. So many support these kind of outreach programs, even assistance for some folks that need it, rebates, incentives to conservation efforts. Just getting the word out about all that the district is doing or planning to do. And here's just the 3 demographic questions that we did ask in the survey. Again, just to see if there were significant differences among them. You see we got a pretty decent mix of income there. The age range roughly reflects what residents, or their age range of residents within the community. And then you see gender is roughly a 50-50 split. So I know we've been talking a little bit back and forth, but now I'll just take any other questions you all may have or didn't get a chance to ask.
Could you slip back to that last slide real quick? If you remember when we talked about affordability, the median income in Parker's about $128,000, I think. So, we had 42%, below median and another some above the median. So it makes me feel like we got a pretty good sample, I guess is where I'm going with that.
Sure, yeah, and even if you take out the 18% who prefer not to say, it's roughly even, right? It's 42 who are below 150 and 40% that are above 150. So I agree. I feel like we did get a pretty good, we asked that question because we wanted to make sure, we didn't just get a bunch of people who are making more than $200K a year, because that wouldn't necessarily be reflective of overall district residents. So.
I think it's pointed out a lot of room for education. Some of the assumptions in the freelance part of the questions are just counter to fact.
Yeah.
And so I think that, to me, I think that really jumps off the page. And when you look at the last slide on one of those sections on the brown water, colored water issues, the filtration that we put in, well, you don't think of it as long as it's coming out clear out of the, so they forgot that 2 years ago they were getting brown water. I mean, so I think that questions to me is a little bit misleading in the result, because.
Yeah, I mean, it made me think that we ought to do a press release on the Riata project, the last filtration project.
Absolutely.
And in that press release, talk about this is number 5, and, so we've been doing all these others, and 50 million altogether on that, probably, something like that.
If you count the full well houses, we're at like 70 million, but that got us some new well houses as well. So.
That would be, I think, a good thing to make people aware of. We see it, and we're working pretty hard.
Yep.
Absolutely. And again, thank you, Ryan, Magellan. I've seen examples of their stuff. They just do a good job, and they make it easy on us, and we appreciate it. But I think what it helps us is not only focus on, communication, but things we need to work on this side. And so I think it really helps set, in what Billy presented, our strategic plan is the communication and outreach side. And so I think it's things that we probably knew, but having them presented and the science, these guys got the science side down. I think we just helps us give a clear path forward. And hopefully, I would actually, this was a great experience, and it wasn't near the cost I thought it was going to be. It's like a every third year or every other year type of thing to just see how we're doing on this. I'm really, really happy with the results, even the negatives. So,
Yeah, I would say that, the communication was really my big takeaway as well. I talked about the work we did for Castle Pines Metro District. There was a lot more familiarity with everything that they had going on, but you've got to remember that they have under 2,000 water customers. You all have over 21,000 water customers. And so there, word of mouth can get you a long way in terms of getting the word out to their customers. It's just, it's not, it's not difficult. It's just a task to reach out to over 21,400 different customer accounts, over 40,000, individual, residents of the district. So it just is, and it's something that any kind of mid-sized government entity, whether it's a county, city, school district, et cetera, it's just a task, so.
What I think is interesting is we're so immersed in all this all the time, and then when you see how little the information, not that necessarily we're not putting it out, but it's not being absorbed by, the elect, so to speak, as long as water comes out of the faucet and the toilet's flush and there's not a major problem, they're okay with that. But in our job, I think we need to do better in educating the people on really where does the water come from, what are we facing in terms of long-term water supply, and how do we go about doing it, or what are we doing to do that so that they, are more comfortable with doing this, because it's almost voodoo magic to anybody. Hey, my water turns on, I don't worry about it. I can sprinkle my lawn, I don't worry about it. But we know that it takes a lot to focus on actually the supply side of this and making it, there's so much work that we do to make this happen, but that part is not really getting out. And I think that Deidre's got a big job there in communicating everything, but I think we really have to, in the next couple of years, really start pushing, educating people. And I'm not sure exactly how to do that, but I think we really have to look at that as a major project.
Yeah, I would add to that, on a maybe a little bit different look, rather than thinking about just educational needs, it's a question of value, right? Do we do a good job in getting our customers to recognize the value of the water and the service? That it's like 7 mils a gallon, right, at your tap. And if they maybe had a better feel for that, or better understanding of that, then they may be less sensitive to the costs and the rates and the like. I also think there's a little bit of some insight. Maybe it's typical, when you're running an organization based on rates, that there's still a fair amount of people that are feeling the pressure, feeling a little bit of the affordability pressures of, geez, the rate keeps going up, and you're going to add these fees. Not everybody, but a fair measure. We know that there's, on the lower income spectrum, they feel it even more. So I think it's just maybe helps inform us, when we start doing the rate building and stuff this fall, late this summer, to kind of keep that in mind, right? Affordability is really important.
feels like a lot of data mining coming up here soon. But I didn't mention it when we went over it, but like the Aquahawk numbers that you've seen up there, I think are pretty standard. There's the 40, 50% that have signed up, and there's the 25% using it. So what's interesting is the number of people that have signed up is way more than the industry, probably 3 times more than what you see in the industry. And the fact that 25% are using it, that one, I believe it's usually around 9 to 12% that use it. So what we can, which is all good news. We're way above the metrics. How do we do that? There was a concentrated effort by our customer service. Every time we talked to someone, that was part of the talk track, and we got them signed up and we helped them. So it's going to take, I think, that kind of focus effort. And it might feel like it'll take forever, but we're probably 2 to 3 times better than the industry on that. So,
Well, as one of the directors said a long time ago, we got to get it on the phone, right? We got to get to the phone.
So we have good news there. It isn't actually an app, but it looks, feels, and tastes like an app. And so that's the new version. It won't be called, it's not Aquahawk anymore. I can't remember what it's called, but it's going to be a button you push on your phone, but it's a web page. So,
Yeah, so relating to Aquahawk, we recognize that having separate systems for your payments and your water portfolio and graphing and trending and stuff, we want to centralize all of that. So the Sprite Engage will be how we can relate to customers, and they can see everything in a single pane of glass, so that we're not keeping those information separate, and then they can get that information readily available in one spot moving forward.
So the key is we have to help people load it onto their screen versus, a lot of times you push an app, a little thing goes like that and you have it. But once you have it, it's nothing more than pushing a button, see what's going on.
I don't know, but my suspicion is that there's a lot of people that get their system kind of set up, and they might be looking at Aquahawk when they do that, early in the year. Everything looks good and they just leave it alone, right? They're like, I'm not touching anything, right? Because everything's green. I'm promoting it, and maybe in a, as these new apps and stuff, as we move that along, that's one of those little short surveys that we can do, just kind of keep moving that along, because we know it's powerful, right? We just know it's powerful.
Well, I don't get into Aquahawk more than once or twice, 3 times a year. I know it's there, but what I do appreciate is the email or the text, whichever, that says your consumption went over your threshold.
Yeah.
Because I had to go over the threshold once and had a $900 bill because I had a leak. And so I jump up and down every time I get a warning I've gone over my threshold, and that's the value of it to me.
But we appreciate your patronage.
Yeah.
I think we should consider naming the new one after Director Booth, since that's one of the things she's asked for a long time ago.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Do appreciate. Adjourned.
All right, thank you. Have a great weekend.